Motion to call to order. Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2023 Economic Development and Tourism Board meeting as presented. Second,
Luke, I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Citizen comment period. Do we have anybody present today?
No citizens are present
Nobody on
and
the
no one's
call?
online.
Introductions. This will be the fun part.
Yeah. A lot of you have already met each other, but if you want to start and just give the team introduction on who you are and
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
long you've lived in Kyle and your interest on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, my name's Calvin. Super excited to be here. I've only been in Kyle for about 2.5 years, but I think like many of you, we've seen insane amount of growth. A bit about my personal or my professional background. Been in growth marketing for about 6 or so years, really on the kind of digital paid media side of things. So with that, I've had exposure to basically every advertising platform you can think of. Consider myself a jack of all trades when it comes to like creating marketing materials, copy, UX, things like that. Most recently, I am currently with TikTok as a client solutions manager. So very consultative role where I'm able to work with some pretty big companies and big budgets. And with that, I get to really tell a story with the data and also kind of flex my creative brain a bit. So I think I'm really excited to kind of bring that type of creative thinking, yet very data driven as well, to kind of help the city of Kyle. So really excited to meet y'all and be here today.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ariane. I've been in Kyle for a little over 3.5 years now. Like many people, I moved to Kyle because I felt like it was a great place to raise a family. A little background on me. I work in hospitality and tourism. I'm currently at a hotel in downtown Austin. And then recently I've started exploring the revenue management side of things. So with all of the growth that's coming to Kyle, obviously we have all of these businesses coming, but I hope to also share ideas of Kyle becoming a destination city. So that tourism side of things.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Lauren Lyons, the City of Kyle, obviously with the Economic Development Team. My role here is Business Retention Specialist. I've worked with several of y'all here, but yeah, even Jenna and Eddie. But I am very excited to get to work with our new folks here on the board. So I guess I've been with the City of Kyle for years. Started with building, then moved into I started with Public Works, then moved into building, and now here.
I'm Jen. I was gonna say, I guess we do have one citizen present.
Oh.
Right?
Technically a citizen still.
Yeah.
My name is Jenna Krennick. I've been in Kyle for about 6 months, but I've lived near it for a lot longer, so I've definitely been able to see some of that growth. I'm currently going to Texas State. I graduate in May with a degree in DMI. And I'm a general manager of 2 corporate stores for Summer Moon, both the Kyle and San Marcos locations. I do a lot of marketing, events, budgeting. I've been there for about 8 months now, and a lot of creative things with that as well. So I'm excited to offer some input and see what I all do here.
Thank you. So Jenna's appointment is on for council consideration next Tuesday. So I'll present it to them, just like y'all went through the same process. And should they agree, which they've never not disagreed with our choices, then she'll officially be on our board at our next meeting. I invited her here as a resident to come in, so she doesn't get behind on our conversation. I think I know all of you. I've been here 15 years now, so it's January 9th will be my 15-year anniversary with the city. So I'm really excited that this board, that we have a new board, and that everyone is eager to just to learn and for us to put forward some good ideas for council consideration.
Hi, I'm Luke Miller. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Ascension Seton Hayes. I was on the ED&T board for about 6 months before my recent reappointment. I've been here working in Kyle for about 7 or 8 years. So happy to be with you.
And I think I've met everybody until today, but just two of you that have been here for a long time. I hadn't met Susan, Reyna, and I work here with Economic Development since August 28th. Before that, I was with Public Works for a year, and then with this, I worked for the state for 28 years. Good to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Spencer Copeland. I work for a company called Disaster Recovery Services in the disaster recovery realm. So hurricanes, fires, floods, tornadoes, helping local jurisdictions recover through either insurance or other grant funding sources, understanding what their needs are and giving those consulting services to help them out. I currently also serve on my university's Houston State University's Alumni Board of Directors, and I serve as the chair of the city's library board.
That's- my name is Eddie Brown. I'm a business owner here in Kyle. Of two companies, one Athlete Performance Solutions, we're a licensee for Nike globally and several of the Olympic sports. And then I also own a company called Game Day Boots, which makes Western and rain boots with team logos on them, mainly colleges. So we're headquartered here in Kyle. We built a new facility here about 3 years ago. And I was recruited by the Economic Development Board to move to Kyle. So I've gone through the recruitment process and remain a very happy customer. And, happy to be part of the Kyle business community.
Thank you. Yeah, next is the election of board chair, vice chair, and secretary. So I think as a board, the voting board members can nominate someone, or you can self-nominate if you'd like, if you feel like you would like to chair the board. Anyone have any thoughts?
Can we talk a little bit just about the responsibilities that you want to see the board chair embrace?
I think that, help with drafting the agenda. So we'll draft the agenda, but then I'd really like to continue on. I started this with the former board chair and vice chair. I wasn't very consistent with it, but I think it's important to have a agenda setting meeting so that we know action items from our previous board meeting, and then what we're going to do going forward, and then also just to play an active role in really being the leader for the board. So somebody that can kind of champion some of the initiatives that we are putting forth to council. There's some a lot of small business initiatives that we're working on. And, you know, I would even consider having the board chair go before council and present the recommendation to council, and feel comfortable doing that and being the voice of the board as to why we voted one way or another to support a policy or not to support a policy. And then, you know, just run the meetings, and then a vice chair would play that role if the chair was not available. And then the secretary would then take the minutes and prepare the minutes for us. So Lauren and Susan can always be a backup, but I think the policy officially states that we should have a secretary who gives minutes. So if anybody would like to also nominate themselves for that.
Can I ask a question before we do all that? Are we just nominating today or actually deciding? Just because we don't actually have a full board yet. So should we
can
wait
until
until?
Jenna gets appointed, and
That was what I was.
yeah, because if there's a role she wants to
Right.
take, or
Right.
thoughts on that, maybe just
You remind me the term.
2 years.
But half the board expires every other year. So some of you have shorter terms.
Depending when you were appointed.
Well, no, or it seats 1, 3, 5, and 7 expire on odd years, and 2, 4, and 6 expire on even. And if, anyway, so
Yeah, go ahead.
the terms are updated on the website as well, if you want to look there, but
So some of them might be 3 years right now instead of 2, just to make
it'll
it.
actually be 1, and we'll have to ask for it.
Oh, okay.
But it may not even, if they serve less than a year, it won't even count as their limit of 3, the way that it's written.
Mm-hmm.
So like your partial term was less than a year, it would not count as, so you
As
still
one
need to
term.
serve
2 more terms or?
3 2 years. And it should have been partial because it was less than a year. Sorry, I did a lot of research.
I know.
And our new agenda software, I'm gonna say this to the secretary, makes it really easy to do minutes. We're not using that yet, but we will be hopefully in January. So I was thinking it might be a collaboration between staff and whoever secretary, just to make sure that we staff captured everything that needed to be. We won't actually do that.
Okay. Well, that's a good point, Lauren. If the board, if anyone feels strongly about wanting to nominate themselves now, or we wait until Jenna's appointed, and then our first January meeting. At least if some, you know, want to think about it a little.
Given that we've not huddled since June, I don't see a pressing sense of time urgency. So if it makes sense to wait till January, I don't think it moves the needle one way or the other.
Yeah, give everyone a little time. And I don't think the board recommendations for chair, vice chair, and secretary need to go to council. Let's just simply decide amongst ourselves. What would need to go to council that I'd like to kind of just move up in the agenda order is the discussion of ex officio. So this will need to go to council first of all, since they're appointed as an actual board member.
By the board.
Yes. So Susan and I also discovered from her extensive research on the board policy is that ex officios are appointed by the board. So when we were restructuring the board and then we came up to review the ex officios that we had now, which was Julie from the Kyle Chamber and Dr. Wright from the school district and the Greater San Marcos Partnership. Those were official ex officios. We decided not to recommend to appoint them so that the board could make that determination. When the city council changed the makeup of the board, they also said that any board members that were not reappointed, such as your two seats, that they left on. So we're talking about Tessa and Dawn and Cassidy. The council recognized the value of having them as part of the board, so they made their seats ex officios should they have chosen to stay on. But Dawn and Tessa decided to not stay on and roll off the board. And then Cassidy from the San Marcos Regional Airport did express interest to stay on the board as an ex officio. So I had to tell her, just to wait a little bit until we could discuss that position. I understand that Dr. Wright may have some desire to remain on the board as an ex officio as well. And then, of course, Julie Snyder is very interested in continuing to work with us. So we could think about it a little. There's also, the board's open to any other ideas for ex officios. There's not a whole lot of a definition, right, Susan, on what an ex, like, you know, what capacity they would serve, meaning, you know, where do they come from? Where do we pick them from? Is it just a need in our board or not a lot of guidance on that, right?
And are there any limitations under ordinance as to who could or could not serve in that?
No, and we are the only board that has ex officios. And so that's why we can't look to the library or any other board as for guidance.
How many?
Did you say up to 5? Perfect. You know that it would not also, I would also could recommend that this board come up with the guidelines for an ex officio and present them to council as a recommendation, and we write that into the ordinance so that going forward, it helps this board in the future, you know, should some of us rotate off, then there's some guidance for selecting ex officios going forward, if that's helpful, because right now, you know, we would just go back with the same ones we've had, which have been very important to us. But having a partner in the school district and the chamber, in the higher education realm, utility, we could also add maybe a utility partner in there. So we want to think about it a little and then make a recommendation to council on those appointments or, you know, an addition or an amendment to the ordinance to clearly define ex officios. I think that would be important. You think? Yep. Okay. So we can also there was 2 items on here to recommendations to council. So for that one, we can maybe just table it until the next meeting in January, and then we can discuss the officio guideline.
I think, there's probably a stronger statement we could make on that front if we agreed with that sentiment,
Mhm.
which I do. I think it warrants a conversation. And I think, some sort of summary back to council that on this point, we've agreed in January to take this up as an agenda item with the goal of delivering potential framework for ex officio, including roles, responsibilities, selection criteria, et cetera.
Right, I think that's.
So they don't
very
think we
good.
just slept through the agenda.
Right, so they won't think, yeah, I want them to know we put a lot of thought into who we select. And even though I think, our school district partners and chamber partners are very important, there might be others out there that we are not considering that could play a valuable role in the board, and we would need their expertise as ex officios. Because right now, there's only 2 board seats, which is Luke and Eddie's that are, you don't have to be a resident. The council left seats 1 and 2 open for healthcare, someone from the healthcare area, and then also for a local business that doesn't necessarily live in Kyle. And then the rest have to be residents of Kyle. So, I think the ex officios maybe don't have to be residents of Kyle. I think that will open up our, right, it'll make it a little more broader to be able to select someone. I don't think Dr. Wright lives here that I know of, and so wouldn't want to not be able to select him as an ex officio just for residency.
So should we make a motion here that we move to draft criteria for council review in January?
Yes, okay. Can you just write that? Oh, yeah.
So we can, I make a motion that we create a resolution, but let's agree to take
Call it
action
an
in
amendment
January.
to the ordinance? The current ordinance?
Yeah, I would think it'd be a motion to recommend ordinance changes to council along these lines.
Okay,
So I
With
would,
the definition of roles and responsibilities, selection criteria for ex officio members of the board.
okay. In January. Did you get that?
You got it all.
Just
And it's
because we're
recorded,
not,
recorded. So-
Yes.
let's give
I got
Jen
it.
time to get on board, and
Yes.
then I think we can embrace it as an assignment in January. And put some thought against it, so we can deliver something meaningful back to them.
Okay. And we'll need council to do, to review that first and accept the changes and then offer feedback. And therefore, then putting us into the February meeting for selecting an ex officio.
That was a motion, so do we need?
second,
Second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move forward.
Did you come up with something different? Or did
Oh,
you
no, I
not?
was gonna say, I put the email, but like, there's everyone are looking at it.
Okay.
What exists?
Okay, oh, yeah. It was not, it wasn't very well defined, right? It's just the,
It's the standard, be 18, be a citizen of the United States, be a qualified voter of Hayes County, resident in the state. Well, it says 12 months or own or be employed,
for an ex officio
Hayes County or contiguous.
or contiguous county, which Travis touches Hayes, so there we go. I think that's good. Mhm.
Or own or be employed in a business of the city, not be employed but are in indebtedness to the city, and it is fine.
Okay. We could look at that, the county of residency. I think Dawn lived in Williamson County, so if we want to pull someone from, I don't know where Tessa, Johnson City is, what county, is a different county, right?
Is that
So-
Lano?
I think so.
Might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard her mention that.
So maybe we'll just visit that.
Maybe clarify what it says, the owner be or employed in a business in the community, clarify what community.
Mhm. Be a stakeholder, I would think, a utility stakeholder partner. Okay. We will think a little bit more on that. How are we on time? Okay, we're good. One of the staff updates I wanted to give was an overview of the department, but I also did want, the board's, feedback on a downtown revitalization grant. I believe that I might have given, when we had interviews, I know that Eddie and Luke are very familiar with how we, as a department, are run here and how we're part of the actual city and not, there's some other organizations that are not part of the city. They are their own corporation, but we are actually a department of the city of Kyle. And we're funded from the general fund. So I just wanted to, maybe during my interview, I may have given y'all some of that information, but this is our whole department here is myself and Lauren and Susan. So we handle all of the business recruitment, retention, expansion through our department with a lot of help and coordination with the rest of community development, which is planning, engineering, public works, and building and permitting. So it's a little bit harder for us now that we are over here on the side of in this building and away from City Hall, but we managed to continue to coordinate on all fronts. So, but that's just a little overview. What I'd like to do in the future for those of you that may want a little bit more of a one-on-one on economic development, I think I could put together a little binder, or maybe even have someone from one of our state organizations. They could sometimes come out and give you a little overview on economic development, or I can do that as well. Just to give you a little idea on how, how our department works. But I think we can save that for the sake of time. And move on to the downtown revitalization grant. And the reason that I feel like this item is a little more pressing for me is because it was approved, the funding was approved by council the beginning of this fiscal year, which is October. And I think we have an applicant that's very, very close to wanting to apply for the revitalization grant, but we don't have a policy in place just yet. We have the funding, but we don't have a policy nor an application. So I envision this board, we've kind of drafted the policy for you to look at, to make feedback on, and I envision the applications running through this board for recommendation to council. And then there's a limited amount of funds in there. So, I'm not sure how many applications we'll see, but I know we have one, the big one coming. That's very exciting for us. So several years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, the city had a downtown revitalization grant. And that is how, I'm not sure if any of you have been around long enough to remember, but we had Lone Star Delights. It was a kettle corn company on Front Street. They applied for the grant and then they did some facade improvement. Unfortunately, a few years later, they left that building, and then now the new tenant is kind of just the facade just a little bit. Milts is also another, the barbecue place that was there a few years ago in downtown Kyle on Center Street. They were a recipient of the grant. And they were able to do their sign and that cowboy that you still see on the side of the building. Again, unfortunately, they have left, and they're not there anymore, and the owner has not yet leased that space. I know that another tenant that applied, the building where the Kyle Chamber sits, they're tenants of that landlord, and the building owner applied to put a new metal roof on the building. And so he received funding to put the metal roof on there. And I like that because it's more of a permanent upkeep to the building. And even if your tenants come and go, that stays there, and that's a permanent improvement. So when we were talking about the downtown revitalization grant and bringing it back, there was some expressed the desire to make sure that we put language in here that the improvements have to be not business specific. So if somebody left, they don't take their sign with them that the city paid, and then no one can use it. It could maybe be the frame of a sign where you would put the business name, but then when they leave, you change tenants, a new business, their information in there. So
Victor, I didn't see any specific aesthetics that were mentioned. Has there been any kind of design inspiration put together a visual that we could provide business owners to say, here's kind of where we want to see the aesthetic go for the downtown district?
Yes. So for the past couple of years, the city's been working on a downtown master plan. And that master plan has a lot of photos with inspiration for development. And I think they've taken photos from different downtowns within the Central Texas area.
I think some, I don't know if you're looking for recommendations
Yes,
now on
please.
this, but I would think some reference to the downtown master plan aesthetics, or as all finalized by council, the expectation would be that would be in line with that.
Right, and the one applicant that we know would like to apply, we've been working with them because of that reason, you know. We want to make sure it's in line with what the downtown master plan outlines. The master plan has not been adopted yet. And I'm not sure what the timeline is on that, but I believe Susan put reference in here to the master plan, right? And that's where we got the outline as well for the map of downtown. There was a lot of discussion on what the boundaries truly are for downtown. So we went back to residents and got a lot of feedback from residents.
Is
that live
the
in the
Asian
area.
restaurant across from the old office within the assigned map? Right.
Yes. Yes.
Page 5.
Oh, yeah, page 5, yes, has the map. So this is what the downtown master plan defines as downtown. So I think it's a good, it's a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 block, or 4 block radius. And 3 blocks. Yeah. Well. So what I really wanted to kind of point out and maybe ask, even the business owners and even residents. If you look on starting at the bottom of page 1 and then going on to page 2 are the actual grant awards and matching funds. So this is this is from the language of the way the grant used to work several years ago when we had it. Just in looking at the dollar amounts, does that seem like something that's fair for, requiring a business owner to, if it's $3,000 in improvements that they're proposing, then the city would not require them to match any funds. They would give them the $3,000 in a reimbursement after the improvements are made. But then as the improvement amounts go up, then the business owner is required to put in some matching funds.
The thought that I have here is that this would incentivize small improvements and not any kind of large scale upgrades. So the example you gave of a metal roof, that's good, not gonna be $3,000. But that would, based off this sliding scale of matching funds, it wouldn't be as incentivized as a small facade upgrade. And if that's the intention, great, as long as that is a known risk that exists. Like that.
Right. So maybe for, with $3,000, we might get some landscape, some paint, maybe, but then the larger improvements will come with the larger dollar amount.
And these are the same amounts, so they haven't been adjusted for inflation.
But if the limit on the fund is 25,000 anyways, that you couldn't give too many of those, knowing your budget is 75,000 for this.
So the council started with 75,000, and it's on a first come, first served basis. But I think if the council is still focused on downtown redevelopment, that if they see this just flood of applications, maybe we could consider and ask for an amendment.
So that's a possibility that exists, that more funding could be allocated. I would recommend that you don't specify what the limit of funding in fiscal 24 is in the policy on that first page, and just leave it kind of out open. And that way, if council gives more funds, you don't have to go back and change the policy anymore. If we're limiting 25,000, that makes sense, leaving that as a fixed number, which being silent on the available funding that's in the pot to begin with.
Okay. Yeah, and again, this was just language from left over from before, so I wonder if even 25 would be the max. I just thought that's a good dollar amount because of the 75,000 that we had. But that's a good recommendation. We could take out and just say that the city has allocated funds to the program and not, if someone dug deep enough, you could find it, but, not say how much, and then, maybe we'll just leave it at the max of 25,000 and see what, how many applications we get. And if we do see it's a very popular program, then maybe we could then make a recommendation to council to amend the policy, amend the budget.
And then other thoughts that I had, if you're open to more
Yes.
feedback.
Yeah.
In the introduction, you don't define small business. 501c3 is a clearly defined term. We all know what that is. Is there a value in defining what you mean by small business? Or does that language exist elsewhere
How about if
under?
you were just a business owner within downtown? Maybe we leave off small, because that question came up when we were actually creating this board and defining the seats and the roles, and it was, we came up with a small business, a micro business being, 0 to 10 or 9 employees, and then a small business being 10 to 100. And then a large business, according to Kyle's standards, a large business being 101 plus, but then we had trouble finding them, large employer. But then the SBDC defined a small business as 500 employees or less, so, Eaton's at least Hayes. And y'all have more than 500? You do right now, by now, okay. So you're right, maybe let's remove, because really, any business owner in that area could apply. Most of them are probably small business defined, but,
I don't think it serves our interest to minimize the people who could apply.
And if there's conflicting language as to what that means, avoiding ambiguity would be.
Yeah, if there's a big company that owns something downtown and they want to spend to upgrade it, I think we should encourage it.
okay.
Going down on page 2, second bullet point of grant criteria, permanent and transferable. The transferable language, that was the intention of, if you make a sign, anybody can plug their front into it and not take it with them when they need it. Is that the
That's
intention there?
correct. Yes.
Going down, matching funds for approved projects will be distributed on a reimbursement basis. Have you thought about what documentation you're expecting to receive? I don't need to define the policy, but just thinking ahead for when you're trying to verify compliance. What do you want to have and what are you expecting to have? Might be something of value to think about, so you're not caught off guard.
I think it's in here. I think it's clear, right? I mean, that's the commission process.
On,
They ask for like page 7,
Mhm.
detailed description of the proposed project. You mean like after final completion, is that what you're saying?
and so,
What documents are required for reimbursement, right?
exactly, yeah,
Okay, let me just-
on page 7. Just thinking about that as well, of talking through bids and estimates, what are the requirements that these funds have to be applied for? Are there any limitations on that procurement process with these funds specifically, or is that just kind of open up for whoever wants to use it? And then do you expect to get the actual invoices or granular
Okay.
detail of what that is?
Yeah.
That's just a thought of, I know, again, not inside this policy, but we should know what you're expecting before people start asking for the.
Okay, okay.
One thing
so
I
more
wanted to
clearly
mention
defined.
too, I'm just actually looking at this for the first time, but one thing I want to mention here is only because I've come across this in being in the building department. In the building department, certain documents are required, especially when you're doing a commercial remodel, commercial permit, whatever. And a lot of those are quite pricey. And a small business owner who's gonna need to put money out up front and hire an engineer or, to do concept drawings or whatever it is, that's costly. And so, that's simply that $3,000. That's something to think about.
And of course, the more red tape you
That's
put on the process, the more expensive it's
That's
going to
right.
be.
That's exactly
And
right.
what does that trade-off look
Yeah.
like of, one, for the city, if you're handing this money out, is it going to something that's reasonable and appropriate versus requiring all the documentation to prove it, that drives up the cost and you get less done.
Within the permit process, if I'm not mistaken, the general contractor contract has to be provided as part of the permit application, doesn't it? Trying to remember, it's been a few years, so I don't remember, but I thought we had to submit our GC, the details of the GC contract along with our permit application for the building.
Not for an actual permit. Now maybe, if there's some type of, incentive with that, maybe,
I
but
don't remember if it
for an
was my
actual-
certificate of occupancy or what it was, but I thought we had to provide our contract with our general contractor.
no, I've never seen that, but I have seen, of course, with the permit and you're doing a commercial permit, your general contractor will need, of course, liability insurance and those type of things, but not an actual contract between the business owner or the client and the actual contractor.
Okay, so that's a good point because we're gonna want to require the same information from everyone. Um. And, Spencer, you were kind of saying that maybe this, even the $0 to $3,000 may already be eaten up with just,
Well, I think.
or as Lauren was saying.
Yeah, concept plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we came across this, I think, kind of with our person who may apply soon. They've got to put money into the drawings and all the initial stuff, and that can easily become $3,000.
But of course, anything that would require engineering and drawing is not gonna be 2,000 to begin with.
Right.
And so there would be some trade-off there that we're talking more inside the 25,000 range if you have to get drawing
Right.
specs.
Right.
But if we're just upgrading plantings or a bench,
Right.
you wouldn't need a AC even to do that. You would just,
Technically, with a commercial permit, you do.
okay.
Yeah, any type of commercial permit, you're gonna need a GC who has the insurance to cover. So,
I have another fun one that's in here.
Yeah.
Landscaping. So, those of you who haven't been in meetings with me before will begin to understand, I have a unique point of view on the city's requirement of planting stuff that needs to be watered and maintained.
Strong opinions on this.
Yeah, so, we spend quite a bit of money every year at our facility and we don't have a huge property, but when you grass and tree 5 acres, your water bill every month is in the thousands of dollars. Your cutting the grass and trimming tree bills is in the thousands of dollars every month. And God forbid your irrigation system doesn't work perfectly, which I don't think there's been one that has. That can also get into the thousands of dollars. So as we're defining drought tolerant and, with all good intentions that brings, as a business owner, gosh, I wish somebody would have just told me to turf my property and the city would get their green grass that they wanted from the street view. And I wouldn't have thousands of dollars every month that I'm paying that none of us benefit from. Not to mention the fact we're a draw on the city's resources, which we don't need to be, because I don't care if it's real or not. It's just my personal thing. But I think anytime that we start to address drought tolerant or with the intent to reduce our use of water that goes through treatment, I think I would also love to start talking about what does a xeriscape option look like? So it doesn't have to be turf, it doesn't have to look like the desert, but there can be a way to do that, which can fit into general aesthetic and make it easier for business owners to invest in their property. Because it's just the downside of beautiful landscaping is it's the gift it gives every month. So if an owner knows, hey, I'll get help on this improvement, but then it's on me every month for the rest of my life to pay to upkeep it. I just think if we could give thought to, should there be simply a word or two for xeriscaping as we're laying out to people in order to qualify for, in this case, it's a downtown program, but really any program. And we encourage people who are going to develop property here to start looking at zero tax on our resources in terms of freshwater usage. And
I believe that the council has tasked the planning department to look at the landscape ordinance right now. And so what we can do is make sure that those requirements are tied to this
This may not be the moment in time for to elevate it.
Right, but I think as the council and that is more and more concerned with the water and they're putting a lot of effort into looking at that landscape ordinance.
Yeah.
Thank you, Spencer. You can receive everything there.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we'll get it. I don't know which trash we'll use,
I'll
but
be in the corner.
okay. Okay. So yes, we will make a note to look at that as well.
It'd be terrible to change the verbiage. I mean, we can reference just zero escape options or
Consistent
something like
with
that.
city of Kyle guidelines for,
Right, we'll have
water.
to make, well, yeah, I want to make sure that zero escaping is an option.
Yes.
I don't know that it is yet, but certainly that's something.
I
Right,
think
so
there's
let's maybe
restrictions,
stay with the landscape ordinance that is in place at the
Yes.
time that you apply, which I know that they're looking at that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons, not to derail, but one of the huge reasons I was incentivized to join the council, just to see if we can make that voice heard, just because I feel like X% of your lawn be like trees and shrubbery where we are literally in a drought, like, is absurd.
Yeah. I know that at one point in time, this grant was also intended to help properties that were out of compliance. Come into compliance. So that was several years ago. So I don't know, Susan, do you remember if that language is still in there? I mean,
I don't know that
to you, right?
I don't know that it's still in here, but
It was also something I wanted to just run by the board and see if they felt that a business, well, a property that is in downtown that doesn't necessarily have a business in it, would they be able to qualify for this? You know, if it's just a property that sits vacant and they don't have any intention of having a tenant there, but could we encourage them to apply just to beautify their facade, add some paint, maybe some window upgrades or something, just for continuous
and that,
aesthetics throughout did you write that in?
well, I was wondering that in that first paragraph, it says, or plan to establish a business in the designated area. Does that cover what you're saying, or what is it you're?
No, just certain buildings that that are owned by longtime residents, but they don't have a presence there. They hang on to it there and could, if they came in and wanted to apply, would we recommend them qualifying for this, even though they don't have a business there? But I think visually it still would help the downtown area.
I'm not opposed to that because ultimately, if that's what moves the needle for them to maybe attract a potential new tenant or new business, I don't see why that wouldn't be up for consideration at the very least.
Okay.
How would you differentiate that from their house, though? From homeowner? I'm just trying to figure out the word.
Yeah, non-residential.
Okay.
Maybe just say non-residential.
Owner of a non-resident.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not just someone upgrading like their.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a word, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Luke has to step out as well, and so when he leaves, then we'll lose our quorum. But that's okay because we've got some good information to start discussions. Maybe we'll just kind of run it back to our planning department. I think we can bring it back next meeting with some of these stuff we discussed in change of language, clean it up a little. And then if at that point we feel like it's a good recommendation to bring this forward to council, we can bring it forward to them in January. That's okay with that. Then we can talk about the ex officio guidelines at the next meeting as well. And kind of a good start.
Overall, I like the grant. I think this is very well written. I think in terms of dollar amounts, I guess that is something for consideration.
You're right, because these are old dollar amounts from a decade ago, and this might not even really help. Yeah, let's look at that, because that could be a recommendation to make to council,
I don't know. the
these
scope.
dollar
I mean,
amounts.
it's geographically constrained, so I don't know your number of businesses, but.
Yeah.
just
I,
something to think
with
about, I guess.
the restaurant incentive program at the back of my mind, with a low usage rate on what was approved,
Mhm.
I would be hesitant to have the first step be asking for more money.
Yeah,
I
okay.
would think, let's see
Let's
what
see
the
how-
usage is,
If
and I
people
think
use
if it's working, city has demonstrated, it will double down on things that are smart and good for the community, so I
Okay.
think there'll be a reasonable opportunity to go request additional resources, but knowing, sometimes it's hard to strike the chord to get it to be popular with business owners.
Mhm.
I don't mind it being what it is to start with.
Yeah,
Okay.
see
Yeah,
the
we
number
think
of applicants we even get to begin with
Right.
this initial framework.
Well, that's all I have for right now. I think we talked about everything on here. If you have any ideas or anything you want to bring up and put on the agenda, we're always open to that as well. But I have a few other things that we want to talk about going forward. Some other small business initiatives that council has funded that I want to talk about in the coming meeting. So,
I do think I would love to figure out how to engage appropriately with planning to further the discussion on xeriscaping inclusion in the overall guidelines.
okay,
So I don't know the right way to do that, but, and it, again, it's not.
let me ask Will where he's at,
Yeah.
yeah, on that. Maybe it's something he's already going into doing.
I
or-
think there are some easy best practices for us to learn from other cities who are known to have done well.
Mhm.
I don't think it would be too hard to pull some things together for Will and his team if they would like us to be helpful.
Okay.
But I think that one just,
Let's take a
having
look.
lived the pain, that just makes all the sense in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Okay,
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Bye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. So generally, we leave all these documents in the room, so, for those of you who haven't been to a meeting yet, about the information being circulated.